Hi, my name is Samuel Rodgers and I'm the environment artist for a prototype game called Rabbit Friends. As an environment artist, one of the first things I had to produce was a level that could be used to place the rest of the assets on. I started with a flat plane in ZBrush and then subdivided it until the polygons reached 2 million. Then I started sculpting the river using the chisel tool and adding more height using the clay tool. Once I was happy with the general position of things and the way the river flowed through the landscape, I exported it as an FBX file. Once I opened it in Maya, I made the edges straight so that it was easier to UV accurately. I made the riverbed so that when the water texture was applied to the scene, it would not float anywhere it was not intended to. The path I leveled out in various places to provide better access to place high bridges and the game challenge areas. I decided to make the player's path wind around the river and up the hill towards the end. I intended to give the player a sense of adventure as they took their journey to the end of the level. It's possible to see the finish of the level from the start. This is to give the player a visual goal of where they need to be going in the level. I wanted the start area to be open and give the player a chance to explore their surroundings before heading off. As an environment artist, I was tasked with making the landscape and a number of environment assets. The most important of these would be the bridges, without which the player could not progress through the level, so they had to be functional and fit with the aesthetic of the game. I went with a medieval style gatehouse for designing the bridge. I researched late medieval gatehouses and took architectural clues from that. For the top of the gatehouse, I used the modular roof from the house kit that I made. I worked out that scaled down you could fit 4 along the gatehouse roof transversely. I then bookended these with a wooden A-frame again from the house kit. This completed the gatehouse. Another part that would be essential for gameplay would be the pressure plate. The function of this is so that when enough of the rabbits sit on top, this will trigger the first bridge to lower. I decided on a circular shape. This would make it possible for the rabbits to approach from any angle. I made it dipped in the middle of the center so it was more intuitive for the player that something is meant to go on top. This is further indicated by the circle that is in the middle of the pressure plate. Things like rocks and trees were also very important. I made a selection of rocks and a cliff face to give more control to the level designer. These could also be used to hide the edges of assets. For instance, if the edges of the bridge platform were visible, these rocks and boulders would go great at the bottom of the river to blend in with the scenery. Next was the path segment. I needed a more detailed path for the player to walk on. This would also be used to flatten out the terrain and make a smoother journey for the player as they moved between the challenges. Through playtesting, I found that the flat path segments cause Z flickering, so I rounded out the edges of the path segments so that they cut cleanly into each other. This eradicated the problem. The next part of my role was dedicated to making a modular house kit that could be interchanged into a number of different configurations. I needed to make sure all of the house pieces could fit next to each other, so I set the dimensions of the wall panels to 200 by 200 Meyer units. I then made the roof panels the same width, so that it would fit on perfectly. The A-frame would then be the right size to fit in between the roof and the wall. I made 6 different wall panels, all the same size and dimensions. 4 of these wall panels had different wood beam layouts. This would ensure that the building didn't look too repetitive. I made a window panel that had a transparency texture so that you could see through the building. This would also let light into the building, aiding the player to feel a better sense of space while inside. I also made a wall piece with a door so that the player could enter and exit the building. This was done by taking the original basic door piece and cutting a hole in it, then making the support beams for the door. I made sure that it was wide enough for the player to fit through. After this was complete, I lined up a cube that would fit inside of the frame and started to make a door from these dimensions. I added details like brackets for the hinges and a knocker, as well as a doorknob. I textured these in gold to make them stand out so that the player's eye would be drawn to them and see it as a target. I made one wood texture and saved it as a smart material in Substance Painter. This enabled me to keep a consistent look to the asset pack. I did the same for the grass texture and kept the same rock textures throughout all of my environment assets. I found this very useful as it meant I could work more quickly and efficiently without the hassle of having to recreate the same textures over and over again. Overall, I'm very happy with how the project turned out. I feel I've achieved my goal of making a cohesive asset pack that could be modularly placed throughout the level. I feel there is a lot I could improve on, but as this is my first time making environment assets, I'm very pleased with what I have accomplished. Thank you for watching.